the actual Notting Hill Carnival procession founder, this woman Ronnie Laslett, who herself, and I think that Michael wasn't African, Caribbean. His father was Portuguese, and Ronnie Laslett, the local social worker. But I think like both of them sort of, they could only be described as multicultural. Like that Ronnie Laslett was, in all accounts, that she was partly American Indian and partly Russian Jewish, and her name was O'Brien. Her husband was Irish. But she said in a 90s interview with Time Out that the idea came to her in a vision after she'd been dealing with a tenant-landlord dispute, that we should take to the streets in song and dance to ventilate all the pent-up frustrations born out of the slum conditions. And so the 1966 Notting Hill Fair and Pageant, or the London Free School Fair, it was like a week-long series of events, more like following like a traditional English carnival format. And the pageant on Sunday, September the 18th, more or less the same time. It was actually Michaelmas, another Michael connection. It featured a man dressed as Elizabeth I and children as Charles Dickens characters, and they call it musical events in the church hall, and a Portobello parade consisting of the London Irish Girl Pipers, a New Orleans style trad jazz marching band, Ginger Johnson's Afro-Cuban band, and the real sort of Caribbean connection, Russell Henderson's Trinidadian steel band. I think they played calypso and jazz at the Culhern pub in Earl's Court. And throughout the fair week, All Saints Church Hall on Paris Gardens, which isn't there anymore, but the church, there's like a modern old people's home. There still is a sort of church hall on the site. Hosted these sort of musicals or entertainments, including international song and dance, Charles Dickens amateur dramatics, jazz and folk, poetry, old-time musical organised by a local pub landlord, and you know, this was the first Notting Hill Carnival. Also featured like inter-pub darts competition. And there was also this guy Dave Tomlin, I think, is a kind of important character, and he put on like his fantasy workshop, which sounds to me like sort of ambient house during the fair. But then on after the carnival, September the 30th, John Hopkins presented the first sound light workshop, All Saints Hall, by Syd Barrett's Pink Floyd. And encouraged by the liberal, sort of referred to as a hippie vicar of the church, and promoted by Timothy Leary's turn on the flyers, turn on, tune in, drop out slogan, this turned into I think it was 10 gigs in all, like residency through the autumn. And I think this was really like counterculture ground zero in England anyway. On Paris Gardens, just this side street in Notting Hill, and the Pink Floyd is still like the Pink Floyd sound, whereas you drop the sound from the name, and they sort of transformed by all accounts from a regular rhythm and blues band into Britain's foremost psychedelic pioneers. It was also here that Syd Barrett was inspired to write See Emily Play, the second single duly covered by David Bowie, but by the looning about of the early Pink Floyd fan Emily Young, is now quite a renowned sculptor. She recalled the Adventure Playground site, right? I think it's still, it was all demolished, ready for the West Wave, but or maybe the actual construction of the West Wave was just starting then. But she actually describes it as the dark side of the moon, the other side of wonderful Britain. It was it was the Martian wasteland, dead donkeys lying around, dead people. Very weird place. The first Soundlight workshop, these American associates of Timothy Leary, Joel and Tony Brown, turned up, tuned in and projected slides on Pink Floyd. And I think that was, although the psychedelic slideshow was already going, I think Soft Machine had it before, but the British version, the liquid slideshow, was developed during the course of the Pink Floyd gigs, and there's a British psychedelic blob show. And as well as Notting Hill Carnival, Pink Floyd, psychedelic light shows and adventure playgrounds, the London Free School launched the UK Underground Press, and I think it's true to say the rave concept of clubbing on the world from this old All Saints Church Hall. In International Times, or IT, the first and longest running British hippie underground paper, it was a continuation of the Free School newsletter that was alternatively known as The Gate or The Grove. It was originally published by Hoppy and Miles, Love Books, and originally it was financed by the proceeds of the Pink Floyd gigs at All Saints. Like the idea of expanding the newsletter into London sort of worldwide newspaper, and I think it's true to say that this all came via John Hoppy Hopkins. Oh, he's the major influence behind it. From the American underground press, the earlier Village Voice, East Village Other, LA Free Press, Barclay Barb, etc. And on the IT logo, that is probably quite common knowledge here, was the face of the 20s Hollywood it girl Clara Bow, but they used a picture of Vida Barra by mistake and had to stick with it. And I think that was as the Pink Floyd gigs kind of concluded in the Church Hall. International Times was really inaugurated with an all-night rave at the Roundhouse, featuring Pink Floyd, Soft Machine, Yoko Ono, and still like a West Indian carnival, a West Indian steel band. Nick Mason of Pink Floyd describes the gig like Paris Gardens with added glamour. But meanwhile, back in Notting Hill, IT was joined by Richard Neville's Oz magazine. I still haven't seen Richard Neville's his film Hippie Hippie Shake. I saw some of it being filmed, and just like his first impression of London, Notting Hill, all these kids dressed up in general's uniforms and Napoleonic hats. But on the set of Hippie Hippie Shake, I guess that's true to say that things still look pretty grim and grey. It was more like the 50s at that stage when Richard Neville arrived. And pretty much, yeah, really at the end of 1966, Pink Floyd's All Saints Hall residency ended. And Hoppy and Joe Boyd opened originally the Night Tripper that became the UFO psychedelic nightclub on Tottenham Court Road, and to finance International Times and as a larger venue for Pink Floyd to expand into.